Now you're looking for trouble condition.
Hello and welcome to another episode of American Werewolves, where we talk all things horror. I am your co-host Brandon.
And I am Jerry.
And today we're going to be going over the two Strangers films that came out just before this new one releases next week. The Strangers and The Strangers Prey at Night. The first one came out in 2008 and the second one came out 10 years later, 2018. This new one's on the horizon, so we thought it was probably best to go over both of them. Jerry, you had never seen them before until today, right?
That is correct, yes.
Right. So, yeah, I have seen the first one plenty of times. I just rewatched the second one before doing this, the second time watching that one. So we are good to go. We are excited to talk about them, and we have some thoughts. Now, you're pretty pumped for this new one coming out, right? I mean, I wouldn't say like super hyped up, but like that trailer intrigued you a lot.
I knew the concept of The Strangers, because I remember when it came out, my older sister had seen it, and she had like told me about it. She didn't tell me like what happened in the film, but I knew the whole like because you're home aspect of it, and I always thought that was extremely creepy. So I saw the trailer for this one, and I did get a little excited. I wouldn't say hyped, because the trailer for this one, it looks like it could be fun and it looks like it could be good, but also the little dialogue that is in the trailer is not very good.
No.
And oh my god. the trailer starting off and she's like, "Do you know what today is?" And he like spoon feeds the audience, and he's like, "Oh, it's our road trip to celebrate blah blah," or whatever the fuck he says. And I'm like,
yeah, it's like he's not even talking to her.
Unnatural. Like,
it's like he's not talking to her. He's talking to the audience. He's just like,
yeah.
It's our anniversary.
Yeah, and she goes, or it's our 4-year anniversary, or whatever the fuck. And then she might as well just look into the camera, like,
yeah. He just makes a comment. Who are you looking at?
Yeah. And then someone needs to make a horror film in the style of The Office.
Honestly. I mean, we kind of have that with What We Do in the Shadows a little bit. I don't know if you've seen the movie or the show.
I mean, like a Stranger's Horror, like a serious,
okay.
But like talking heads.
Who knows? Maybe that'll be part 3. We never know.
But yeah, the dialogue just isn't super great, and then the last half of the trailer is just her screaming a lot. And
yes.
So I'm hoping it's good. Is the same writer responsible for the new trilogy, or is it somebody new entirely?
It is new writers, completely fresh. Yeah.
That's scary.
Yeah, it is. I'm gonna double check. I think he's an executive producer on these films, but we all know that doesn't mean shit. And no, he's not even producing this one. He has nothing to do with these films. Nothing at all. This is a fresh take.
That must suck to have like this thing that you've created.
Yeah.
And for the studio to be able to just do whatever the fuck you want. Like, I know that's what Sylvester Stallone right now is going through with like the whole Rocky universe. Like, he just wants them to stop. He's like, I did not give you permission to continue doing this. And they're like,
yeah. And now we got a Creed 4 coming out.
Yeah, which he has nothing to do. They're doing I think a movie on Ivan Drago. I think I could be wrong on that. It's one of the Rocky.
Oh yeah, I heard about a spin-off for that character.
And he was like, what are you guys doing to these people I've created? Like, so it must suck to have your baby like just robbed from you, and the studio be able to do whatever they want and possibly ruin it.
Yeah, that's the downside with a lot of movies in Hollywood, especially with these reboots and sequels and prequels and requels, everything coming out with them. Yeah. I'm not even sure what the hell this new trilogy is, but before we even delve more into that, let's go over these first 2 movies. This film, the plot follows as this. For The Strangers 1, 2008, a young couple staying in an isolated vacation home are terrorized by 3 unknown assailants. That's the That's the entire film. There's nothing else to it. It is just two people in a house, and there are three people trying to break in and get them. The film was written and directed by Brian Bertino. I believe this was actually his first film. He actually based it off of a lot of real life experiences, his own experience. Apparently, there was a time when he was a kid, and he got a knock on the door. They asked if someone was home. He said no, wrong house. They left, and then he found out the next morning that his neighbors were robbed, and he assumed it was always the same person. So yeah, it's inspired by a real life event that supposedly happened to him. Inspired by a lot of other different things, like the Kettle Cabin murders, which is, I believe, a real home invasion that took place in the 70s. It was a very similar style to this story to this film, especially towards the end when the couple was murdered in chairs in the middle of the living room. So, and also a little bit of the Manson murder. So yeah, just a lot of like creepiness, a lot of like, inspired by a lot of unknown home invasions, a lot of unknown murders where these people were never caught. And he decided, let me turn that into a psychological horror film. Now, I have not seen this in a while. So actually, no, I saw it a few months back with a friend, rewatched it again. I grew up watching this movie a lot. It was the talk of the town when it came out. Everyone loved it. I had a weird relationship with this movie. At first, I loved it. Then after a few rewatches, I thought it was quite boring. I didn't think there was much to it. And then rewatching it again, I still enjoyed it. I don't know. Maybe that has to do with my taste changing throughout the years. But I really think that this film is a very solid home invasion thriller. It is very creepy, very scary. I like the idea that there's not really a motive for these killers. And by the way, for anyone watching or listening, spoilers ahead. We are going to be talking about both these movies. They've been out for quite a while. So yeah, if you haven't seen it, which I'd be surprised if you hadn't seen the first one, click away. If you don't mind, stick around. But yeah, let's get into the pros for this movie. For me, the best thing about this movie, the thing this movie does so well, is tension. This movie uses tension so well to the point where it is so anxiety inducing that you just want them to show the thing that is like behind the corner. You want to see if one of these strangers are like, just peering in the corner, waiting to attack. And it's just really good. It's a lot of quietness too. There's barely any music used throughout this film, except for maybe a few score pieces here and there in the beginning, towards the end, and the vinyl music that they put on throughout the film. I love the atmosphere for this movie. I think it really like aids the filmmakers when it comes to just building up these scares. And it's not like typical jump scares. It's actual just tension, like just scenes like where Liv Tyler's character Kristen is just standing in the living room pacing around smoking a cigarette, and she doesn't notice that the man in the mask is behind her in the corner. Like, she doesn't see it, we see it, and that off the bat is already terrifying because it shows, one, he already knows how to get in the house, and two, he's not going to do anything about it yet. He just wants to mess with them. He doesn't want to just go for the kill right away. And that's what really makes this super, super scary, honestly. And it also shows a lot about their personalities. Like, they really don't say anything throughout the movie except maybe a line or two towards the end of the film. But just the way they approach terrorizing this couple just says a lot about their personalities. So it was a good way to show that without them saying a single word throughout most of the film. And, also I like the fact that with a lot of horror movies, they tend to like glorify gore. And this one is, more suspense over gore. There is gore. There's only really 2 body counts in this film, but when the gore happens, it's there, and it's not even like super flashy or in your face. It just really, this movie was rated R because of just how damn scary it was, more than anything, which is pretty cool. And
Sure the profanity count had something to do with the rating, because I think that PG-13 is you get 1 fuck.
Yeah, no, you get 2.
You get 2?
You get 2, and they can't be sexual. They got to be non-sexual.
Okay.
Yeah. It's, but yeah, no, that's what I really enjoy about this is that it's just tension building. It's scary, and rewatching it, like, I've seen it a few times, and even then, it's just like, I just, also especially that scene with with Dennis, which we'll get into, Glenn Howerton's character. I know it's not Dennis, but I can't help but think it's always sunny. His name's Michael, right?
His name is Mike. Yeah.
Exactly. Cool. So Dennis, he's in this movie, and yeah,
3 minutes.
we'll get into that sequence. That was one of my favorite sequences, and is also the one that pissed me off the most. What? Damn, I forgot. I believe the actor's name is Scott Speedman. He plays James. Is that correct? That's the husband's name.
James.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that's
Yeah.
the actor's name.
Yeah, Scott Speedman. I don't know what else he's in. Honestly, I just really recognize Liv Tyler from this film, and that's about it. Oh wait, no, Scott Speedman was in the Underworld films. I don't know if you've seen those movies at all, the vampire movies. They're
I've
pretty
seen
cool.
like bits and pieces.
Yeah, they're pretty cool, I guess. I don't know if they even hold up now, but I know that franchise has a cult following.
Mhm.
But yeah, I guess I don't really have too many cons for this movie, but there are some annoyances I have. I don't know about you. What are your pros for this movie first before we move on to the cons?
I would like to start off by apologizing if anybody hears the ice shaking in my coffee cup. I'm trying very hard to be quiet while drinking. I don't know if it's up. But going forward now. My pros. Honestly, I have to say I finished watching this movie and I was like, it is bonkers that I have not watched this before because I loved it.
You loved it.
I loved it. Now, I love locked room thrillers. I love stories. I love books that is just one setting and you give the characters this impossible task to survive being in this one setting because one, it's super fucking suspenseful because you have nowhere to go.
Yeah.
Two, it very much shows the creativity and I think how well somebody can write when they have limited resources. And they're able to take one setting and just a handful of characters and to be able to keep you entertained for that long. Like,
Yeah.
Taylor Adams, my favorite writer, every single one of his books is a locked room thriller, and he fucking knocks it out of the park every goddamn time. In my opinion. And this movie just like what is it? Hush. With Mike Flanagan, phenomenal fucking movie.
Great locked in thriller.
Buried with Ryan Reynolds until the end.
Man, I
Fucking
forgot.
amazing movie.
I forgot about that movie. That was a good one, but yeah, until the very end, that pissed
Yeah.
me off so much. Oh my gosh.
So this movie just absolutely did it for me. Like I loved it. The scene where that you mentioned where she is smoking in the kitchen and he comes out like from the hallway out of like just darkness. Just like put me on the edge. Like it was just so haunting because I didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, they're in no rush. They're in no rush to kill. They don't even care if they get caught. It's not that they don't care if they're going to get caught. It's that they are confident they're not. Because at the end, they take off their masks because they know there's going to be no witnesses.
Yeah,
to rat
like the
them
scene
out.
right behind you in your background. Yeah,
Yes.
it's like it doesn't matter if you see our faces. There's no out.
Yeah, because you're not going to live to tell the tale.
Yeah.
And it's the calm, collected effortlessness that they take to terrorizing this couple. That is just so terrifying because it just shows you that this isn't new to them. It's new to I was reading something. It's new to one of the killers because of a line that happens at the end. But the pinup and the man in the mask, this is something they've done quite a few times before. Is that what the new trilogy is? Is it their first one, or
Yeah, I don't know. We'll get into what I think this new trilogy is because they're leaving it very vague right now, but I have a
okay?
few ideas.
Chapter one just makes me think it's like their first or something.
Yeah.
Just the title itself. But I mean, from the lack of a score, like it's very just natural. I don't want to say natural audio because obviously there's a Foley artist, but um, the lack of music, other than the strangers just fucking with them by using the record player, um, the fact that you do care about James and Kristen from the beginning of the film, like you're
Yeah.
caught in the drama that whatever this was, which I think the second one did lack. I think the second one lacked character
Okay.
development within the main family, the family. Um, the suspense that it does that is in the first film, um, because the strangers they're not even on screen for a lot,
They're
but it's
not.
just them.
They're hidden a lot in the shadows in the background until the halfway point.
And that's what I mean, like of it shows you like the talent of a writer because like they're barely in it, and James and Kristen are able to carry this movie in the fear that they hold so well.
Yeah.
Um,
And the talent on his directing too, because like if you read this script, honestly, you would probably think like not much happens. This is a basic run of the mill home invasion, but the way he directs it really helps amplify that tension, that suspense that's needed, and it
yes,
also helps pace the film very well. It never slows down. It never feels boring at all, which is really nice.
yeah. I would 100% watch it again. Um, it's great, honestly. Like
Yeah,
I loved it.
yeah. Do you have any cons with this movie?
I
Because
don't
I don't have too many.
I don't think I do, honestly.
Yeah. The only thing I'll say honestly that really bothered me is character decisions. It's a thing in both movies, though it makes a lot more sense in this movie than it does in the sequel. The Some characters' decisions are really dumb, but you also get that these two characters, this couple, are desperate. They don't know what to do. They just want to get out of this situation more than anything. It's after he kills his friend, he blows up Dennis's face and he's like, I'm going to go out and scream for help or go get help. I thought that was dumb, but that was like only the real one I saw that was kind of stupid. But I get he was in a desperate situation trying to just push out.
Yes, I didn't look at it as a dumb decision. I looked at it as I just murdered my best friend, and it's these people's fault.
Yeah, it's human. It's very real.
He's done with this situation. He knows a way to get help. He's gonna go get help. But I also think it was a matter of him like, if I run into these people outside, I'm gonna blow a fucking hole through their chest. Like it was I think that was also what was going through James's head is like he's just killed his best friend. This is over. He wants this night to end already. Um, and he's giving himself one a way to get him and Kristen help to protect this woman that he loves, but also he's giving himself an excuse to hopefully run into the strangers so that he can fucking kill them because like
Yeah.
that's exactly what would have gone through my head. That was what I initially thought when he was loading the gun. I thought what he was going to tell her was, "I'm gonna go outside and find these people." So for me, that wasn't a yes. It was a no. I can't even say that. For me, it wasn't a dumb decision because it was just a human nature letting emotions take over. And honestly, it was him trying to get help, and that's what you need to do in that situation. I don't really think it was a dumb decision at all.
Okay, I get that. I'll go with you on that. But yeah, that was honestly the only one, and it was only real one that kind of stood out to me, and I thought was really stupid. But other than that, I don't really have many cons with the movie. I think it's a well paced home invasion thriller. It's really creepy, really suspenseful. I like the ending. I maybe the final jump scare is a little goofy, but I have a question. Do you think she is alive by the end of this movie, or is that her final gasp for air? I
Well, she screams no. Um, she's not gasping for air. She screams no at the kid.
okay.
I think what it is her. She's been unconscious, losing blood. I think her screaming no was her possibly thinking the strangers were still there, waking her up.
Right.
Um, I would like to believe she lived. Um,
I honestly think she may have died soon after that. Just because the beginning crawl where it says this is based on true events, I believe that like to this day still aren't explained. So I'm like, if she did live, I think there'd be an explanation. I think these people would have
that's
been
true.
caught, this and that. So that's the only reason why I'm thinking maybe she didn't make it. Maybe she bled out a little bit after that moment. You never know. And then she just ended up passing away before she can really explain what went down.
Yeah, because the kids
Um,
also would have said something to 911 when they were calling for help in the
Yeah,
beginning.
and then the fact that the man in the mask he goes back for the phone when she kind of comes back alive for one last, hoorah when she sees the phone's ringing and stuff. Um it's very, he just kind of comes back and grabs the phone, just looks at her and walks away, just like knowing like she's not going to make it, she's going to bleed out.
Mhm.
But yeah, what would you score this movie?
Honestly, like I said, it's for me that's a 10 out of 10 because
Nice.
that's what I like. I like those kinds of locked room thrillers, and I think this movie did it very, very well. There was no complaints. I was invested the whole time. Um, like I can say the second one, there were times where I picked up my phone. Um, the first one, I didn't. Like I was just
Glued.
locked the fuck in. Like, yeah,
Nice. Oh yeah, I would give it the same score. Like I want to I want to say like 9 out of 10 just because, but I don't know, maybe that could just be because I've seen this movie so many damn times and maybe I'm just getting sort of it, but I think for a home invasion thriller this is one of the best. This is up there, so it would say 10 out of 10.
it's also I'm shocked um how the reviews for this film are. Like I
For
looked
the
up,
first movie?
yeah, well, I kind of for both, but mainly the first one, yeah. I googled it right after just to look at general reviews, um, and it's like I think Rotten Tomatoes, like the audience score, because fuck the Rotten Tomato score, because
Yeah.
movie reviewers, like professional reviewers, don't really know what the fuck they're talking about.
No,
Um,
yeah. A lot of the times these movies aren't even made for them.
Yeah, but like the audience score on the original, it's like a fucking 50, 48.
Really? That low?
It's lower than the reviewer score by 1%, but
Damn.
the reviews are not good. And I've always heard of this film being so, like, every time someone talks about this film, they praise it. Understandably so,
Yeah.
but the fact that the scores online are that low is wild.
I I believe it has to do with it being overhyped. For one, at the time it was very overhyped. People were calling this the scariest movie ever made back then. And also, I can see a lot of people being very bored with this and being like, "This isn't a horror movie. Nothing's happening. It's just them running around in a house and screaming for an hour and a half." So I could get that, but I think for people that are just big fans of psychological horror and psychological drama, I think they're gonna really eat this up. You're a fan of it. I'm a fan of it. It works for us. Will I be running to rewatch this movie again anytime soon? No, I'll watch it if like someone I know hasn't seen it. Um, yeah, this isn't the one I would honestly say I'd rewatch a lot. Um, but also it could just be because of burnout for me. But yeah, I can see people not liking this movie because of it could be slower than most traditional horror movies.
Yeah, and it all comes down to just like personal taste. Like for me,
Yeah,
this is a kind of like thriller horror that I like. And so for me, this perfect, and I didn't I can see why somebody would find it slow because like nobody's dying. Like,
Yeah.
but
Like I
that's
said, the body count's only really 2, maybe 3,
yeah,
depending how you view the ending.
but that's you don't need to have a high body count for it to be a successful horror
Not at
movie.
all.
You don't need to have a body count at all. Honestly, like if you do it
Yeah,
well
I can't
enough,
think I can't think of one right now, but I know there's films out there where maybe no one dies,
I'm sure there
and
is.
it's yeah, and like it can still be very creepy.
Um, but yeah, it comes down to it's a personal um taste, and if you are somebody who likes a little more action happening in your horror films, it may not be the one for you. The second one maybe.
Yeah,
Because the second one
which
is
I'll
very
definitely
different.
get into. Yeah,
Um,
which yeah, let's dive into the second one because I got a lot of thoughts on that one, honestly.
and that's why, yeah, and because of my preference, you're gonna see now my view on the second film.
Yeah. So this film, The Strangers Pray at Night, comes out 10 years after the original film. The plot goes is this a family of 4 staying at a secluded mobile home park for the night are stalked and then hunted by 3 masked psychopaths. It's the same strangers as the first film. They're just still hacking away and terrorizing people. This time, instead of a secluded house in the middle of nowhere, it is a secluded trailer park where no one seems to be at. I don't remember the reason why there's no one there. I guess what people went away for the season or something like
I
that.
think it's technically supposed to be like a vacation spot.
Okay,
And while the aunt and uncle live there, nobody else does.
got you. Yeah, instead of being directed and by Brian Bertino, he just has writing credit along with Ben Katai, and the film is directed by Johannes Roberts, who he's very hit and miss with a lot of people in the horror community. He's done 47 Meters Down and the sequel 47 Meters Down Uncaged. And he also did Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City, the last Resident Evil movie that came out in theaters, the one that was inspired by the first and second video game. And people hailed it for being accurate. That's another topic for another day. um, so yeah, he's very hit or miss when it comes to it. And this time, instead of doing psychological horror and psychological drama, he decided to take the slasher approach with this one. And you can just tell just from the opening of this movie, like this is a very different film. This is very 80s inspired, 70s or 80s slasher inspired, completely different vibe. This one has a lot more, I'll get to the pros. This one has a lot more style than the first movie, which I appreciated. I'm glad they didn't, if they're going to change it up, at least make the change up interesting. And I felt like the style for this movie was pretty cool for me. I know you were texting me about how this director, he loves his zoom ins and zoom
Holy
outs.
fucking shit! Every fucking shot was a goddamn zoom in.
Yeah, as soon as you pointed that out, I kept noticing and I kind of started laughing. I was like, all right, this is a little comical
Dude,
now.
it's so many shots. I want to
Yeah.
rewatch it just to take a shot every time I see a zoom in shot because I would
I
get
think you'll black out.
fucked up.
Yeah.
Dude, it's oh my god.
It's insane. There's a lot of zoom in, zoom outs. And I really do like that style because it calls back to like those filmmaking styles of old school slashers. But yeah, as soon as you pointed it out, I kept looking and catching them and I was like, all right, this is
Dude,
a little
it's like every 5 shots. It's excessive.
Yeah. Oh, fun fact, before I forget, the original draft of this screenplay, which is why I asked the question about Liv Tyler's character, Kristen, she was supposed to be in the opening for this movie. She was originally in there and only to be killed off, though.
I would have been so mad.
Yeah, I'm glad
I would have turned it off right there.
Yeah. I'm glad they did not do it, honestly. It would have ruined the mystique of that first one.
Yes, it would have ruined it. 2, can we assume, though, that because she was supposed to be in it, even if she was killed off, that she did survive at the end of the first one because she was supposed to be in this one? Even though that scene was canceled.
That's why I wanted to ask, but maybe they love the idea of just leaving it ambiguous.
Yeah.
and having us talk about it. But yeah, if we were gonna go off that, it could be hinted that she was still alive, but she was gonna get killed off anyway, so it didn't matter. How soon it would have taken place after, I don't know. The only logical way I could have seen it happening is if it was directly after the events of the first film. I don't know how much time has passed between this and the second one.
I was gonna
Honestly,
ask that. Is it 10
it
years
says it
or
says 10 years,
okay?
but it doesn't make sense with um how they are. I feel like there'd be I mean, I'll get to why, but like, we'll talk a little bit more about it later, but you see Dollface's face. Like you see them take off her mask, and in the first movie she's still very young. In this one, she's still very young too.
I was gonna say, especially the man in the mat. Like, I feel like they would have slowed down. Like, at least him. Dollface could still be fairly young, but
Yeah, maybe she
him,
got good genes.
yeah, him. I feel like he would have slowed down a bit, but like he's they're a
He's
lot more
running.
confident in this film than they
Yeah,
are in the
and
first
they're
one.
resilient. They're even more resilient than they are in the first movie.
Yes.
Now, so this one, this one, let's get to the characters. They focus on this family. They're taking their daughter to a boarding school because she's a little shit and she just can't stop getting into trouble.
Which, by the way, they never go over that. They never
Never at all, right?
They're like,
okay.
She's like, you're cutting class. You're what is it? Cutting class and failing.
Like, what?
She's
You
like,
would think she'd be popping pills or something and
yeah,
like ditching school, all that.
They briefly mention that she cut school and that she's failing a couple classes, and I'm like, that's it. Like, the
Like,
fuck?
homeschooler doing.
Yeah, like it's not that serious to send her to boarding school.
Yeah, they were just like, I don't know. They're probably like, I don't want to deal with this. Like,
I thought she
whatever.
was like selling fucking oxy like under the bleachers. Like, no,
Right.
she's
Yeah. Also, it's cool to see the main girl is played by Bailey Madison, the daughter. Cool to see her, she was very prominent back in the day. What happened now? It's just
nothing. Keep
what
going.
happened.
I saw a meme. Keep going.
um she was in like a lot of films we watched growing up, like Bridge to Terabithia, playing the younger sister of Josh Hutcherson, which that movie that wanted to break every child's fucking heart, whatever. And she was in that horror movie by Guillermo del Toro, Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, which I remember seeing once and I enjoyed it, but I didn't think it was all that either. And now she's all grown here and not doing Disney stuff anymore. So I was always wondering where she's been, and I mean, it seems like she's got a steady career going. Good for her. And then we have her dad from X. He plays the porn producer in the movie X. His name's Martin Henderson, which he's always a staple in horror movies. He did The Ring, he did this, X, all that stuff. Then we got Christina Hendricks playing the mother, which I mean, it's always cool seeing her. Kind of felt very random she was in this movie though. Like, I don't know. I never see her pop up in horror, so it was just very random, but always good to see her. But yeah, they go to this secluded trailer park to, and they decided to take a break there because they were trying to visit family, and then they're like, "Oh, the family's not here. They left a note. I guess it'll all be good." But you see on the note, there's a smiley face, and it shows like, "Oh no, that's the strangers. They wrote that, and they're setting up their little trap or something like that."
I don't think the Strangers wrote that. I think
You don't think so?
No.
No, wait, that was already there in the beginning, right?
Yeah, I think what it was that I think Gatlin Lake is on the way to the boarding school and that they were just stopping to visit family and they were like, "Hey, we're going to get here super fucking late." And so the uncle left the key for them knowing that they would probably be asleep by that time.
Gotcha. Okay. But yeah, as soon as like, the night goes on and progresses and they're trying to be a happy family, which I will say the dialogue is a little awkward at times, where like the brother and sister are talking, especially he's just like, "Oh, come on, sis, like don't be like that," or some shit. Like, I don't know. It got really, there was points where I was like, this is pretty bad. The actors are doing their best. The actors in this movie are good. It's just the dialogue I feel like doesn't help them.
Yes. From like I texted you like not even 10 minutes into the film, and I was like, this already feels like an unnecessary sequel because of a bit of the dialogue and
Yeah.
um just the direction of the film. Um, which I was proven wrong. I did enjoy the sequel very much.
Okay.
Not nowhere near as much as the first one. Like, I don't know if I would watch the second one again. I would
Really?
100% watch the first one again. Um,
I'd honestly say I might rewatch this one a little more than the second one now after rewatching, just mainly because it's a lot more fun. You know, the first one is
yeah.
so dreadful and dark and like this one is dark too, but like there's a lot more style to it. Like I was saying earlier, it's a lot more fun. The kills are creative, very slasher movie. This is just for the slasher fan in me that just
Yeah.
really enjoys this,
Which
honestly.
which I enjoyed. I enjoyed that these two films were not the same film. I
Yeah.
enjoyed that they were completely different movies and that they didn't try to redo the first one.
Yeah.
Which is something I am nervous about. While I am excited to see another locked room thriller, I am nervous about going into this next one.
Yeah.
Into chapter one. But yeah, the dialogue, sometimes, and the just direction and just the shots. Again, all the zoom ins. Cinematography wasn't really my favorite in this film. Um, One thing I also, and you could argue that they're just getting more confident, as I said, and it's just one line, but Inup doesn't speak. I don't think at all in
No.
the first one, and
And in this one, she's barely in it.
she is barely in it. She has one line where Bailey Madison, Kinsey,
Yeah, she's like hiding in that tube.
yeah, and she's like stop or whatever, and Inup pops up, and she's like, oh, but we're just getting started, and
Yeah.
I liked the idea that the strangers didn't really talk because it just shows that they don't that they're confident that like don't we don't need to communicate. We're
Yeah.
doing what we're doing. And her just Pinup's line, that one line kind of threw things off for me a little bit.
That felt like it was added in post, like it was just done in ADR afterwards for some
It,
reason.
yeah, it just I don't know, it felt weird to me.
Yeah.
Dollface I can see speaking because she's the least experienced. Like when she says because you were home in the first one, they both look at her like shut the fuck up. But because she's like a little more inexperienced generally, I can see her character speaking more.
Yeah.
Um, but Pinup and
Plus,
it's
she's the one also asking, is Tamara home and this and that. So it makes sense that she talks.
right. Pinup speaking in this one, especially with her not saying anything in the second one or in the first one. It just felt a little weird. That's just me being nitpicky, but
Yeah, no, but I definitely agree with you on that one. Another fun fact with this, there's a reason why Pinup Girl is not even in this movie as much as she was in the first film, and it's because the actress left halfway through filming because something about like the mask felt too claustrophobic for a lot of the knife fighting scenes and chases and stuff like that. So they got rid of her. They got her a stunt double in, and there wasn't a lot of time to really film her stuff because they were behind on production, so they couldn't really include a lot of her in it. Great, thankfully she's in one of my favorite scenes throughout both these films, to be honest, which is the pool scene.
that's a phenomenal. That's the best part of the movie.
I think it's the best out of both these movies. It's my favorite, honestly. Like that's where the movie just changed up completely.
Yeah.
That's where I was like, oh, I'm really digging this. This is super fun because it just comes out of nowhere. It's unexpected. The pool scene where the brother is out there, totally eclipse of the heart is playing, and then that's when the zoom in works for me when he's just by himself and you see Pinup Girl running in the distance and the camera just fucking pushes in and he just swings, knocks her down on the ground in one swing.
Great scene.
To the point where he looks around and he's like, is that allowed? Like,
Yeah.
is this allowed in a horror movie? Am I supposed to take down the villain this early?
So And yes, the actress being uncomfortable in the mask and stuff, you gotta do what you gotta do and leave filming. Um, she doesn't have lines. Like, other than that one line that I just talked about, could they
Yeah.
not have just gotten a stunt
I
double?
think there was just other scenes they had, and they were already behind on schedule because when you're filming stuff, you have only a certain amount of time to film certain scenes, and then you got to move on. So maybe they were like, "Oh, we got to keep moving while dealing with her." I don't know exactly what happened on the set. I don't know, but that's my assumption that they were just behind. They had no time to film the extra scenes they had to film with her.
Because I
But
know
yeah,
Pedro
that
Pascal isn't in every scene of The Mandalorian. Like, they have some, because,
no.
yeah.
Yeah, no, no, no. Like but like that's what makes it work. They just got stuntmen for that, and that's it. But yeah, that pool scene, dude, I absolutely loved it. Just everything about it. It just felt like a different director came in and took over, or either that, or this was just the scene that the director wanted to film the most, and he was super pumped about because this seems like he pumped the most passion into it.
That scene feels very different than the rest of the movie.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe the studio was like, "You have to do this, but we'll give you this one scene if you want," and and then he just went ham on it.
Yeah.
So props to him on that scene. That's one of the best scenes in this franchise so far.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely a standout. It just like after, and then especially after like he stabs her and he sees the man in the mask come in, just kind of like dragging the axe. Just you can tell he's upset. He's like, "Oh man, she's dead." And then the kid is just taunting him and all that stuff, and screaming. They have a fight at the pool. They fall in there, and you think the kid is gonna make it, and then all of a sudden, oh, hold on one second. My dog is not feeling well. What's up, buddy? My dog's not. Dexter's not feeling too well today, so he's next to me. What's up? You okay? It's all good. It's all good, buddy. Okay. Oh, but yes, yeah, that scene overall is just super super cool. I absolutely love it. And the brother gets stabbed in the back just before the man in the mask leaves, and somehow he's still kicking, he's still breathing. At the end of the movie, you see him tied up in the hospital bed with tubes and stuff. I'm like, this kid won't die.
Yep.
Wow. But yeah, I absolutely loved it because, and then moving forward, it just turns really really fun. When when the girl starts taking down the other two strangers, we get to that scene at the end of the near the end of the film where the police officer shows up. He gets killed immediately by Dollface. She gets into the car, manages to get the shotgun. Bam, kills Dollface right there. As she asks the question, "Why are you doing this?" And then Dollface simply just goes, "Why not?" And is just smiling like a maniac before her head is blown.
So she shot her point blank in the chest with a fucking, what was that, like a 12 gauge? Like,
Yeah, and she's still breathing. Like, okay, slasher movie logic right there.
yeah.
The first movie would never. I'm just saying.
No.
Like Dennis Reynolds got his face blown up. You're not gonna see him talking.
Yeah. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Yeah, pool scene was great. I It's a shame that the parents, I fully expected them to die.
Yeah.
Um
Which, by the way, the scene with the dad was also another interesting scene. Really, int- that scene is like the one that stands out to me too, when he's in the car and then the man in the mask kind of just sits there and messes with the radio, I believe.
yeah.
Yeah, that was another standout scene. Just Martin Henderson's acting, and that was really, really good.
Yeah, I expected them to die because there are only 4 characters in this movie, protagonists, and there has to be a body count. And they're not going
Yeah,
to kill the kids. At least they're not going
yeah.
to kill Kinsey.
I was surprised Christina Hendricks died first, honestly, because she's like the biggest name arguably in the movie.
Yeah.
So to see her go first, I was like, oh damn, like they are not playing.
Yeah. I just, like I said in the beginning, there is no reason to care about this family. They give us nothing. There is no, we get a quarter of a backstory of Kinsey, if she's a bad kid because she can't pass math, and that's it. And they just realize they need to send her to boarding school.
What a rebel.
Honestly, with her Ramones shirt. um, and that's kind of it. Like, the parents were very sweet.
Yeah.
And you kind of care about the parents because they are just can tell that they're good parents.
Yeah.
But like the brother gets in the car, he starts off the film with an attitude, and you're like, I don't fucking like this kid.
Yeah, he just does not like he doesn't like this trip at all. He doesn't like his sister.
Kinsey seems like a brat.
He's a 17, 18-year-old acting like a 13-year-old.
Yeah, Kinsey is like a brat in the beginning, and she's upset because she has to go to boarding school, but like fucking study, and maybe you wouldn't have to go.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Maybe we should be siding with Kinsey. I mean, like, it's like, you're seriously sending me to boarding school over that shit? Come on now.
Honestly,
Like,
yeah, because they
I
didn't give
hate
us a
your
good
mom and dad.
reason to send her to boarding school, so maybe Kinsey's right. But that's kind of it. Like the first one gives you immediately a reason to be interested in this couple, this family.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it plays at your heartstrings because you then learn that what is causing this tension between them is rejection, and we've all been there. And
Oh yeah.
and immediately you relate, and it makes you care for both of them. Um, but you don't really get the only character development in the second one is Kinsey and Luke. That was his name, right? The brother Luke.
Yeah.
Kinsey and Luke trying to survive, and them being like, "Hey, we love each other because we're siblings," but they only realize that when they're faced with death, which is, you know, sure. You can argue that Kristen realized that she did want to marry James.
Yeah, like there was
When
definitely still love there.
Yes.
It's more fear-based than anything, it seemed like.
Yeah. But I think I think Kristen in that moment was like she was faced with death, and if she were going to die with anyone, she wanted it with James. And I do think if they had made it out at the end, Kristen would have changed her mind. Maybe she wouldn't have, but that's what I got near the end where she
I
was
think she
wearing
would
the
have.
ring.
I definitely think she would have
Yeah.
over time, you know.
And I don't know, there was nothing like that in this other than Kinsey and Luke exchanging "I love yous" siblings, but like
Yeah.
that's the only character development. You don't get an actual you don't
Yeah,
get
I
their
mean,
backgrounds.
you can argue with Luke that, like, for one, there's a really stupid decision he makes where, like, he can literally kill Dollface right there. He's got the
And
gun
he
to her,
fucking does
and
it.
he doesn't do it. Even freaking Kinsey's like, "Give me the fucking gun!" Like, what are you doing? Like, but then
Because-
again, we wouldn't have a movie. And then you can argue that that was his turning point was the pool scene when he actually manages to kill one of them, and he stands up against this, like, you know, evil force coming towards them. So that's like that's the only argument I could see when it comes to character development or small character arcs. But yeah, after that, we get the scene where Kinsey kills Dollface. The man in the mask pulls up in his truck and smashes the police car so Kinsey can't get out. And another cool scene with cool use of music, Air Supply song playing in the background. And she lights the car up on fire because the gas tank is, you know, leaking gas. She sets it up and she thinks she's good, but he's still driving that fucking car. And then he gets out of the car and you think he's about to like slash at her, but he's so burnt up after that fire and he ends up passing out on the ground. Then we get the scene where, you know, she hauls down the truck with the lady and her son driving. And it was kind of funny when she's like, "Please, I need help. I need help." And the lady runs away immediately. And I was like, she's like, "Hell no, you can, I'm leaving." But yeah, you know, lady was smart. Kinsey hops in the back. There's a little tense fight scene. She gets a baseball bat, smashes the man in the mask head down, and they make it to the hospital with hint of a possible third movie, hint that the man may still be alive, but also not really. She just hears a knock on the door and she's like traumatized, so she freaks out. And I'm guessing you're supposed to believe, like, what is that? Is that the man in the mask? Is that all three of them somehow? Like,
no, I think it was just showing that Kinsey has now this PTSD from this night, and that was
Okay.
just simply the nurse knocking on the door.
That's
being like,
that's
"Hey,
what I
can come
got
in?"
from it. That's what I got from it this time. It just seemed goofy because they were trying to play it as like, oh, is it them? It's like,
Yeah, no, they're
no.
all three are very clearly dead.
Yeah, and they're in a hospital. If they saw a burnt up man in a mask walking around, I think they would say something.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's it for these two movies, these duologies of Stranger films. Now, what would you rate this one?
I would give this one a 7. 7 out of 10.
I'm gonna give it. I was gonna say I'll give it like a. Actually, no, 7.5. Same here. So we're both pretty much on point with both these movies because it is a fun movie. It is a fun horror movie. It's a type of movie you can leave on in the background, like during Halloween when you're hanging out with friends and stuff. You just want a spooky movie playing. Really fun. I think the first one is definitely a better made movie.
Yes.
It is a lot more tense, a lot more suspenseful, a lot more. It's a lot more dreadful and serious. And this one is just we're gonna have some fun with these characters and these kills, and they're very different. And I really love that about these movies, that they're just very different. It's also my worries for this new trilogy coming out now, especially that they've already been filmed and they're scheduled to release months apart.
Yes, I do agree. They are very different films, and I love that they are different films because you don't feel disappointed that the second one didn't live up to the first one because it wasn't supposed to.
No, it never was going to.
It was something,
and I think
entirely.
They knew that.
Yeah.
Which thankfully, they brought back Brian Bertino to like go ahead and write this one because he had control of like what to do with it. He kind of knew like what they had to do if they were going to make a sequel in the first place.
Right. I do like that they were very different.
Yeah.
Because it also, as I mentioned earlier, personal taste to the two different films. It gives the two sides of, more suspense or more action within your horror. You get something out of each of these films. Different people are going to prefer either one of these. And so I like that it's able to reach a wider audience because of that. I will say one thing that I also do really enjoy about the first one that the second one doesn't have is the first one is filled with such tension, such suspense that you kind of forget one thing with the characters, that now there isn't a moment like this in the second one, but as you mentioned, dumb decisions. I think you feel more in the second one, like where Luke doesn't shoot her. For me, I was like, bro, just fucking pull it, like, and just pop her.
Yeah, straight up.
In the first one, Mike has a phone, and not once does Kristen or James think to grab his phone.
Didn't it get thrown in the fire?
That was Kristen's phone.
Okay.
Not once do they think to grab Mike's phone because they're in such this state of like, I don't even know like how to describe. They're
so distraught.
Right now.
They're just distraught. They can't focus. But again, it goes back to, dumb decisions in horror movies are fine if they make sense. Like, for example, the movie Green Room. I don't know if you saw Green Room or not. Yes. That movie is full of dumb decisions made by these characters, but they make sense with who these characters are and in the situation they're in.
Dumb decisions, unless they're extremely dumb decisions aren't bad. Your protagonist is supposed to make mistakes, because if they don't make mistakes, how does the story move forward? The point of a story is to put obstacles towards your main character's goal, and if they don't make decisions that are going to detriment that their progress towards that goal, you don't have a story. Your story is going to be over very, very quick. And so dumb decisions are okay to an extent. And while I don't think them forgetting Mike has a phone is a dumb decision, I think it shows how well the first one was able to build suspense, because even I forgot that Mike had a phone.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it.
Not once did I go, hey, why don't you grab the phone from Mike's body? Like, that's the film. The first one does so well is making you feel that terror and distraught along with James and Kristen that you forget that aspect.
Yeah,
Um,
no, exactly.
the second one doesn't do anything like that, and again, it's a different movie. It doesn't have to do anything like that, but for a scene where, with the doll face scene and Luke fails to shoot her, you just watched her stab your sister in the thigh. Like, you're not gonna fucking pull the trigger after that? Like,
Yeah,
come on.
no, it's like you should be going ham right now.
Yeah. And it's
Um Oh
yeah,
yeah, and then
that
he also puts the gun down and leaves it because the man in the mask crashes into the mobile home.
I
And
I don't think I can't blame him entirely for that, because the table could have been knocked over and the gun lost
yeah,
debris and stuff. That's
true that. But the moment they showed the shot of him putting the gun down, I was like, it's gone.
oh yeah, we're
It's
never
just
gonna see that fucking gun
it's
again.
like it's that cabin in the woods effect where like they just leave the weapons behind and it's like
Yeah. Um
but yeah, you don't expect that to happen. So it just made sense. Um I do have questions
okay.
for what you believe this new trilogy could be doing.
Okay.
Now, do you believe this trilogy is just completely ignoring these two movies, or are they actually like midquel? Is it like a midquel sequel? Like, but they, are these three movies going to be taking place between the first and the second one?
I don't know. The Strangers Chapter 1 makes it feel like this is before the first one. Like, this chapter, just chapter 1 makes it feel like this is the beginning of the Strangers. Like, this may
Yeah,
be their first attack. So this could
yeah,
be a movie that's taking place in like 2006 or something.
yeah. But
Um,
remember, the other films are Chapter 2 and Chapter 3. So are all three of these movies taking place before 2008?
it's possible, but also
Could
another
potentially.
thing that, because it is a trilogy, there's no way that we're watching Madeline and her boyfriend be terrorized by the strangers for 3 fucking movies. Like,
No.
so is it just 3 random strangers movie? Because it's a trilogy, so they're
they
going
make
to.
it seem they make it seem like there is going to be a connective through line with just these films. It's going to be one big story. So she may survive the first one, pop up in the second. She may not survive the second and not pop up in the third, or she will. Who knows?
That's what I'm saying.
There's
Like, if it's a trilogy, they have to connect.
yeah,
And
especially if you're calling it chapter one.
yes,
Like this is going to be a connective story.
these aren't stories that I think connect well. Like, I'm glad the second one had no relation to the first one, because their goal is to get in, do what they're gonna do, get the fuck out.
Yeah,
So
and it
the the first it being a trilogy of films, I just don't see what they're going to do to connect and draw, because it's a very simple concept.
yeah, very
While
simple.
I did mention a locked room thriller can show the talent of a writer to keep you entertained for that hour and a half, or if you're reading it in a book, those 8 hours that you are spending reading this book.
Yeah.
Um, 3 movies is different to do it in.
Yeah, and it's kind of it worries me because it make from what they've been saying about these new movies, it makes me think they're gonna start delving into who the strangers are and why they do what they do. And I am not interested in figuring out why they do what they do. There's a reason they're scary. It's because they have no fucking idea what's happening.
It's
And
because they're normal people and they're doing it just to, like, I
yeah,
liked that the first one, even when they take off their mask, we don't see their face because it doesn't matter who they are.
does it?
Because they can be everyday people that you're walking past in Walmart, and they're just psychotics. Like,
Yeah.
they just do it to do it because they're bored, and that's what's horrifying. I don't need a trilogy. We don't need a trilogy to show who they are, because we don't care about who they are. We don't care. While Joker is a phenomenal film, what makes the Joker such a great villain is that we don't know who the Joker is.
Yeah.
Wolverine is such a great, or one of the interesting things about Wolverine is that we don't know what Wolverine's background is, which they explained in Origins, which was unnecessary, but we don't know what Wolverine's background is. We don't need to know the background of the strangers. Now, if you want to show us their first attack, which is I'm interested in that if that's what this is. If this is their first attack, because this is going to be the strangers very new, very fresh to this, and the strangers, just like the protagonists, are going to make mistakes. They're
Yes.
going to fuck up during these attacks. So we could see a very different strangers than we have seen in the first two.
Yeah.
And that would be interesting.
Yeah. I would definitely like to see that. I believe, though, in my opinion, that this is a fresh reboot that has nothing to do with these first two movies. I think, honestly, for one, they don't even have the original writer back here, like we discussed earlier. So my light went out. Oh well. So yeah, I look a little grainier, but yeah, we don't have him back. So I feel like they're just going off fresh. They're going off their own ideas. They're just because the trailer for this first one, it just seems like they're redoing the exact same thing as the original film, for one. But maybe the trailer's doing a really good job at hiding what's really happening. And off bat, I'm more curious about chapter 2 and chapter 3 more than I am about this first one, unless this first one is really going to pull the rug out from under us and they're going to do something so gnarly that we weren't expecting at all. But, the reviews are out. The reactions are mixed so far. Some people love this. Some people don't. It's expected. But, at the end of the day, we're not going to know until we see all these 3 movies come out so we can get a final opinion on if any of this was even necessary to begin with. So, yeah, even when that first movie drops next week, it's like we could enjoy it. We could not enjoy it, but we will not get a full picture. We won't even get a full idea if it was necessary until all 3 movies are out. And it's just interesting. I've never seen a theatrical franchise film 3 movies back to back to be split out in theaters like this, mainly for horror. I mean, they did it with Fear Street on Netflix, but it's Netflix. You can pump that out whenever the hell you want, and people will be there to watch it.
Weren't the last 2 Halloween films filmed back to back?
They were supposed to be, but they weren't due to COVID. But yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on these movies. That's pretty much my thoughts on this franchise so far. I'm really curious to see what chapter 1's going to do. I'm pretty excited to see where they go with it. Hopefully it's not a beat for beat remake once they get to their little vacation spot.
Yeah, I really hope it's not, because the first one I think is a perfect film, and to redo that just feels unnecessary.
Yeah, it was like done fine the first time.
Yeah.
Give me some good tension, though. I will say that. Just go back to the roots of the first, where it was just full of tension. It wasn't all jump scares. It wasn't over glorified gore and kills. Just give me good tension. I will be so for it.
Yeah. One thing that could be the trilogy, now that I thought of it, is, as I mentioned, it taking place before the first one. And while the trailer makes us believe that Madeline and I don't know the actor who plays her boyfriend are the protagonists, as you mentioned, a theory of us learning who the strangers are, the trailer could be playing with us, and the trilogy could be that the strangers are the protagonists, and we could see 3 films of them learning how they became the strangers, how they became the strangers that we see in the first one. So the first one, they're fucking up a lot. The second one, they get a little better. The third one, they're perfecting their craft, which leads into that first movie. And that could be the trilogy of them just becoming the strangers. But again, that gives us the story of who they are. And I don't think we need to see that, because them being anonymous is what makes him so horrifying.
Yeah. Granted, I don't think it's a prequel to the first, because of the line at the end of the first where they're talking to Dollface after she talks to those Mormon kids, and they're like, it gets easier and stuff like that. So maybe that's why I'm thinking this new one takes place after the original one.
That's what I was going to ask. Is Dollface in the trailer? Because if she is, then we know it doesn't take place before the first one.
Yeah, if I remember, she's in the trailer. Yeah, she's on the cover.
Oh, okay, then it may not. This may be a full reboot because yes, that line at the end where Pinup tells Dollface it gets easier shows that this is Dollface's first one.
Yeah, but
And-
here's the thing. I'm looking at this picture of Dollface now, and she has a beanie on over their mask. Could this be a different Dollface if this is like a prequel trilogy or a sequel trilogy? What if, just what if, this is a fucking crazy theory, what if the main girl in this movie, Madeline Pesh, ends up being the Dollface that we know?
I
what
don't
if?
I don't think that.
Just what if not here, what if like some character in chapter 2 or 3 ends up being that, like they lose one and then they gain another? Like what if it's something like that?
I think the theory of Dollface not making it out of this trilogy and them getting a new Dollface, which is who we see in the first and the second film, is very
Yeah.
possible. I don't
Yeah.
think
Like what if this is just a weird psychotic cult, like a Charles Manson type
Yeah.
thing going on, and it's just new people coming in and out, and that could explain the different people, the different actors in the second film that played the strangers compared to the first one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there could be potential that like they're just like gaining new people, or there's like more than just these three. But at the end of the day, is that something we want? We'll see how the movie plays out, honestly. Like I said, we can't really talk we can't talk too much on it. But do you have anything else to add to these two films or these upcoming films? Because that's gonna do it for my thoughts, honestly.
Yeah.
I feel like we went a little overboard, honestly, with talking about these films.
Yeah. No, I don't really have anything else to add. Other than tune in next week for The Strangers, Chapter 1 review part 2.
Yes. This is gonna be the part 2 of our Strangers review series.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for you guys clicking on here, watching or listening. We really appreciate it. It's just been a lot of fun talking about horror movies on this channel. It's been super, super cool. It's something Jerry and I have been wanting to do for a while. We started off on and off, and now we're just going for it, and it's just been a blast. So, let us know down in the comments what you guys think about this episode. What do you think of The Strangers? Do you prefer the first one? Do you prefer the second one? Are you looking forward to this new trilogy? And is this some trilogy you even wanted? Give us a like, subscribe, comment down below. Let us know what you thought. Once again, I am Brandon. Stay spooky.